from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we won't have to wait long because those were some good questions that I'll take up in a moment. Secretary Clinton, first I'd like to thank you for the truly remarkable job that you've done as Secretary of State. You have represented the interests of this nation magnificently. And I, for one, hope that after a bit of rest, you will consider a return to public service. And should that return bring you to Florida, I will look forward to welcoming you there. I'd be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to once again thank you for your efforts on behalf of my constituent, Robert Levinson, who went missing in Iran in 2007, now 2,147 days ago. And I ask that the Department continue to do everything that it can to return Robert to his family. I also want to thank you for the ways that you've handled the tragic events in Benghazi. Your personal commitment to ensuring that those Americans who serve American interests overseas, often at great risk to themselves, is a testament to the commitment that you've shown throughout your tenure at State to strengthen our diplomatic efforts around the world. And I'd like to return to Mr. Chabot's question. There is an awful lot of debate here on the Hill about how we spend our dollars. We all recognize that we have budgetary concerns. We also recognize that we have an obligation to provide security and to protect American personnel abroad. And as we've ended our military operations in Iraq, as we wind down in Afghanistan, I'd like to ask, what kind of strain will the presence of less military personnel in the region put on diplomatic security? Let's start with that.
That's a very important question that we're really going to have to grapple with together, I would hope. We saw, for example, that when our troops withdrew from Iraq, it dramatically altered what our civilians were capable of being able to do. Because there had been, over the course of the war in Iraq, a very good working relationship between DoD, State, and USAID. We're going to face the same kind of questions in Afghanistan as our troops draw down from Afghanistan. And in a lot of these places, we don't have military resources. The Department of Defense was a very good partner to us in responding to Benghazi, but their assets were too far away to make much difference in any timely fashion. AFRICOM was stood up 10 years ago. I think that that is going to look quite prescient, because we're going to need to figure out how to work more effectively together between our civilian and military assets in Africa. And I think that would be a worthy subject of this committee, perhaps working with the Armed Services Committee, because it's often difficult. But in my 4 years, we've tried to work out more cooperative relationships, more funding streams between State and DoD in order to be able to maximize the cooperation between us.
When you talk about the need to prioritize because of shortfalls, more Marine security guards, talk about construction budgets and upgrades, what does that mean? What are the decisions that have to be made, and how do they actually impact our diplomatic personnel?
Well, first and foremost, we have to do the right job prioritizing based on the resources we do have. And I would be the first to say it's not all about money, but it's also not without budgetary consequences. And so we have to figure out what's the right balance. Secondly, immediately after this happened, I spoke with Secretary Panetta, Chairman Dempsey, asked the Defense Department to work with us in putting together interagency security assessment teams to go out and look at our high-threat posts, because our military brings a different perspective. And that was a very important process, which we are going to continue. We're also looking to see how we can better cooperate on the security aid that we give to other countries. It's got to be a combination of both military assets and expertise, but also development, rule of law, democracy building. It can't be one or the other. They have to be married together.
And if you could, in the few seconds that we have left, Madam Secretary, could you just could you speak more broadly about the important role that will play in this budget debate that's going to take place? Why is it so important for us to continue to fund this?
Well, let me just give you an example. Colombia. You know, Colombia 15, 20 years ago was in a very difficult state. It had an insurgency. It had a drug cartel that was basically controlling territory. The United States stepped in, worked with the Colombians, and the progress, I think, is evident for all to see. There was a front-page article in the travel section about go to Medellin. I mean, that's what America can do. We don't do it ourselves. We partner with willing governments to help them acquire the capacity to protect their own citizens.
Thank you.
We go to Mr. Joe Wilson of South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And